Thank you for coming today. We're very excited. This is now our third edition of the Source 2050 product workshop. We are going to have all of these videos available online soon. We're working on getting the first two up, this one as well. And then we'll create kind of a library as we go through the dozens of products that we have on Source 2050 and do these workshops. Once I've fixed the chat, you'll be able to put in your questions. You can drop them in as we go through or save to the end. But we're very excited to have with us Alex Nickel. He is working with Blaugelb. He's making their products available. We're excited at Source 2050. We've had the products listed for some time now, coming straight from Germany, and that's always presents its own problems. This was before tariffs were the issue, but it was always extended lead times, et cetera. Worked out. People are very happy with the products. It's just bringing them in from another country is what it is. So we're very excited to learn that Alex is now taking inventory and setting up as a distributor. So for some of the product line, not all of them, they will be available much closer to home and available faster with lower shipping costs. So that's really kind of turned what's been a very interesting product into something that you can really get for your current project in real time. So we're very excited about that. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. Kevin's going to tell us all about our program today. Kevin.
Great. Guys, my name is Kevin Brennan. I'm with Source 2050. I'm the director of building systems. I'm screwing up my own title. So I want to welcome you to the program. We have Blaugelb on with Alex Nickel, who is going to present the Blaugelb products. The Blaugelb system of products is a way of installing windows in a thermal bridge-free system. He's going to present some solutions that have been mainstreamed in Europe. The Tritotherm, the Plinth product. He's going to explain how the products work. He's going to have some good live demonstrations. But so at the moment here, Alex Nickel is a architectural technologist and sales representative at Fentro. He's representing the Blaugelb product line. He's out of Canada, and he's here to explain the products. So, with no further ado, Alex, take us through.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon from wherever we're joining from. Yeah, jumping into Blaugelb, 2 sentences maybe to the history and the name. Blaugelb is a European brand, a German brand, and it also carries a German name. Blaugelb simply means blue-yellow. So it's a bit of a tongue twister in English maybe, but it has a very basic blue-yellow translation out of the German language. The brand itself has been around for 20 plus years, but it really started coming to the forefront and gaining the attention about 12 to 13 years ago, when the company, through its own invention, had a breakthrough of a pretty unique product. It is an EPS product. I'll jump right into it shortly here. But with that new product, it really started gaining attention as a thermal buck solution in Europe. And it's been used in Europe for the last 11, 12 years. Firstly started in Germany and then spread out through other European countries. And it's now come to North America as well. Fentro, where I'm my employer, where I'm home, my company, or not my company, where I get to, my company that I get to call home. We are based in Manitoba, Canada. So, and there our focus is wholesale distribution. So we took on the Blaugelb into our stock last year, and we're basically making the European products more readily available in North America, Canada, US. We're pretty central on the continent, so we can ship in either direction fairly effectively. So let's jump right into it. Blaugelb, their main product, which kind of put them onto the map, is their Tritotherm window buck product, and I'll pull up a sample here. So the Tritotherm window buck product is an EPS product that's graphite infused. In North America, we often refer to this as GPS. What makes it unique? GPS itself is not unique in the industry. What makes this unique is its density. So Blaugelb has come up with a way, the science behind it, the machinery behind it, that the EPS, as it's being compression molded, can be compressed to such a density that you get a structural material out of it. So just holding it in my hand, it's the standard EPS, but it's so dense, you could almost say it works like a 2x4. It's not quite as dense as a 2x4, but we get the idea, right? And in here, for example, we've put in some of the fasteners, and I can give a good reef on it, and we all know how soft typical EPS is, right? So we see the difference here. It's EPS, just a crazy density, allowing it to be both a thermal product, so a thermal resistive product, and at the same time also a structural product. It is load bearing, the way it's designed and intended to be used. So I'll pull up a mock-up display here. So triotherm window buck, so with the intention of having a window buck to mount the window in. That's this application here. So we have our typical wood frame construction, cavity insulation. So this is how we would typically build in North America. Up in Canada, especially on the West Coast, we're seeing it more and more. Building codes require, especially in BC, we have the step code system, where cavity insulation just doesn't meet building code requirements anymore. So builders are having, on a typical 2x6 construction. So let's move this into the center here. So builders are having to modify the way they build their standard wall assembly. And because on this chat we have, on this live stream here, we have lots of builders, lots of architects who are also interested in performance building, so this really applies even more. But builders are either going to a deeper wall cavity, or what they're doing is they're adding exterior insulation. So they have the cavity insulation inside, and then adding additional exterior insulation. Now, adding the additional exterior insulation becomes a unique scenario with the windows, right? So now we have a scenario where we either have to create flashing for that window as it's now inset, or we have to bring the window further out. So what the triotherm buck lets us do, it lets us mount that window further out, but at the same time structurally support it without creating a thermal bridge. So to mount it further out, we need mount the window further out. We need to structurally support it. This can be done through plywood, through a 2x6, 2x8, what have you, right? But all of those are not great from a thermal perspective. So by using the triotherm, we attach the triotherm as a window buck to the structural plane, and this now becomes part of the structural integrity of the wall. And the window itself can now mount directly into the triotherm and also be fastened into the triotherm. So it is load bearing. So essentially what happens is the rough opening gets framed, and before the opening is framed out of wood, and before the window goes in, the buck gets put on. The buck itself is, the triotherm is a system, so it comes in a three-part component. One, we have the main EPS, GPS component here. The other component, we have polymer adhesive. So this is an adhesive and a sealant in one. So this goes on the back end of the triotherm, and then it sticks to the structural substrate. And then it is also, with the third component, mechanically fastened. So we have the fasteners going in to also support it. Once this is in place, this is now part of the structural layer. And the EPS is so dense, it can take a structural load of 300 psi. So in terms of EPS, what is in the market, or insulation, what is in the market, I know in the US it's handled a little bit differently in terms of types of EPS. In Canada, we have 4 types of EPS. And type 4 EPS is kind of the strongest, and with the strongest EPS we get about 100 psi of compression force. So that kind of puts it into comparison, right? We have 100 psi type 4 EPS, and this can take 300 psi. So just kind of, if some of us have worked with type 4, it kind of gives us a bit of a relation as to how much denser this is. So now with the buck attached, we can set the window directly in here, and setting the window in here really doesn't have to be unique. This can be the traditional method of install, whether it's fastened with anchor brackets, whether it's fastened with a flange. I know those of us who have dealt with windows, I hope we're all cringing right now, because nail flange shouldn't be a thing. There's no such thing as a nail flange. We have flanges to tape onto, but we should not be fastening windows with a nail flange. But in the industry, it still gets done very frequently. But even with the triotherm, even that is possible, right? It doesn't hinder the installation at all. But the unique thing with working with triotherm is, first of all, the main thing is we've gotten rid of that thermal bridge. We now have a thermal break component. This is an EPS component. On an R value, it is roughly 3.85 per inch. So it's not like standard EPS. It is slightly less, simply because it is compressed, right? The compression loses some of that resistive value. It's still a very great insulator. Excuse me. But also the versatility with using this. If you have scenarios where on a job site the rough opening is not framed correctly, it's not square, it's not level, it's too big, with triotherm, with putting on the window buck, it allows you to readjust that opening now. You can readjust it as you mount the triotherm to get it back into square and level. The other benefit is the mounting opportunities you have here. Like I already mentioned, you can mount it on the flange, you can mount it inset, you can mount through the frame and down into the triotherm. This is very typical in Europe. It's less typical in North America, but in Europe this gets frequently done. You also have the option of mounting from the exterior. So from the backside now you can run in a fastener into the window. And probably the more typical, or it's becoming more typical in North America, is using anchor brackets or install brackets. Install brackets on timber construction is actually becoming a very important aspect in North American construction. And just last week I heard that it's actually been adopted into the new version of the building code that we have in Canada. Why that is, because we have timber construction moves a lot. So we have, especially in new build, we have settling, we have seasonal shifts. The window is not meant to move, and if the building and the framing around it constantly moves, we can...
I think Alex froze. Yeah. Alex, if you want to take a quick pause and get your internet is breaking up a little bit. So just take a moment. Hopefully it can settle itself off. You're good.
Can I keep going? Are we good now?
Yep. You're good now. Yep.
Okay. Very good. Okay. So yeah, I was saying basically that window is not supposed to be having those stresses as the building settles. So with anchor brackets like these, this is actually an invention that comes out of North America, and it can actually be sourced through our company, through Source 2050, it can be sourced as well. It allows that window to basically not experience all those settling stresses as the building around it settles. So I think it's definitely the right way to go, and many of the performance window installers will use something similar to allow that window to not experience the stresses as the building settles. So nonetheless, back to the buck, it really gives you the benefit of now having a thermal bridge-free layer, especially on performance building. We have really good windows in the industry already. We have really good wall assemblies, and everybody says the good window is only as good as the install. And very often that critical point, that marrying between the wall system and the window system, marrying that point is very, very critical. So by having a thermal break component and allowing us to use proper tapes, whether it's through this portfolio, whether it's through others, we have really good tapes in the market. It allows us to really create a unison wall assembly from window to wall to the connection in between. Here, for example, speaking about tapes, we have a Blaugelb product. I won't dive too much into detail on all the other Blaugelb products. I want to stay more kind of on the EPS side because it's definitely a lot. But just very, very basic here. This tape is a vapor diffusion open tape, so keeping moisture out, but if moisture does get in, it can still dry out to the outside, right? On the triotherm buck itself, it's a non-permeable component, so it does not need to be wrapped in a WRB. The joints should be connected, but the buck itself does not need to be. Some builders do. I think it's a kind of a peace of mind approach. It can be done. You can wrap it in. It doesn't need to be. What is important though is that the WRB does not extend in behind the triotherm. We need the triotherm adhesive to mount directly on the structural substrate, right? We don't want any paper layer in behind it, so the structural integrity can stay in place. So what we're seeing here is a 70 millimeter depth. European components, we're going to deal with a lot of metric dimensions, so I'll try to convert as we go. So this is 2 3/4 inches. 2 3/4 inches deep by 85 millimeters wide, so we're right about 3 inches wide. That's kind of the smallest size of the buck, and the buck goes all the way down to a 230 mil, so we can go all the way to a 10-inch buck. So we can imagine the loading on a 10-inch buck is significantly different, but it's designed for that. It can handle those pressures. Just to put that into perspective, maybe I'll grab here we got a 6-inch buck for example, right? So we can see it's already significantly deeper. 6 inches, so we can extend another 4 or 5 inches onto this in terms of size variance. So it really opens the door for those super well insulated projects where we have a very deep exterior insulation layer. In the industry, we often do this with Larson trusses, but when it comes to windows, now you have that scenario, right? Where does that window sit? How is it structurally carried into down to the foundation, the load? So with a buck like this, being able to go that deep, it really opens up those opportunities. We can jump back into the triotherm later in the Q&A. I just want to move on to the next EPS component here, which is characteristically, it's the same material in a different geometry, but it serves a bit of a different function. This is a scenario that comes up in the construction industry more often than I think we realize, and that is the thermal bridge underneath doors. Think patio doors, think entry doors set on a concrete slab. Right underneath there, you have that cold bridge, right? And what we have here is the same component, different geometry, as a plinth material. So it's just essentially a small piece of plinth that would go underneath the door, allowing us to get rid of that thermal bridge. It is dense enough that it is load bearing, so the full weight of the door, even a large 10-20 foot sliding patio door with heavy glass, we can set that on here. It is structurally strong enough and it allows us to get rid of that thermal bridge right on the bottom here, right? So we see this door here. I realize here this is just slightly out of frame. I gotta lift it up a little bit. But we see the concrete slab and then the plinth creating that thermal break right there. I used to work in multifamily design, and on multifamily buildings we had a gypcrete layer on levels 2, 3, 4 and up to have that sound dampening from the layers below. And especially on a gypcrete pour where your balcony doors would be sitting right on the subfloor. Now you're doing a gypcrete pour, you need to raise that door up somehow because you don't want the gypcrete right up against the door. So we would be building up all these timber barriers for the gypcrete to kind of sit in so it doesn't run out of the building, and essentially creating thermal bridges all over the place. Having known about this, at that point we didn't, having known about this we could have really avoided a lot of those thermal bridges, which would have been ideal. Jumping into the third component, again, same characteristics, same 300 psi compression ratings, but a bit of a different geometry, and that is essentially a sheet material. I've got a small component of it here. It's the same material, comes in 4x4 sheets, so 4 foot by 4 foot sheets in various thicknesses. And this is what we've noticed in North America is really, out of the Blaugelb portfolio, this is definitely the interesting product. Because our way of building is different than how they do it in Europe. And with something like a sheet material, it really opens up a versatility. We can take this to the table saw, we can cut it to whatever size we need, and we can apply it however we need, right? For example, on this same display here, we can see it replacing a stud. Now this is not something you want to replace across your whole project. You don't want to replace all your studs with an EPS product, but in very critical scenarios where you have that stud layer that it's just impossible to insulate over or under, and it's going to be that thermal bridge, there it can be replaced. Either have another stud beside it or replace it with a piece of multi-pro, just ripped down on a table saw. And now instead of a timber structural component here, we now have an EPS structural component, which really has that 3.85 R value per inch, so we can do the math on that, right? It definitely gives us a much better thermal break there. What's really been unique with the sheet material is, I'll just pull up a poster here, it shows it nicely on a poster, is the ICF industry. So with ICF, insulated concrete forms, maybe I'll just do a quick little intro to those who are not familiar with that. This is a very typical way of building in Canada, especially when it comes to basements. So ICF construction, it's a piece of EPS block that gets set up around the perimeter, and then concrete is filled into it. So you have your structural basement layer, which is insulated on the outside and the inside, which really is a great solution that we have in the industry. But the ICF industry has a problem when it comes to windows, and that is right around the window opening. Right around the window opening of an ICF construction, you need some sort of a structural plane to be able to hold the window. Number one. Number two, you need it to be strong enough that during the pour, when you're putting all this heavy wet concrete on it, that it doesn't collapse. So there's two options in the industry right now. One is just simply using timber, framing a window in with 2x8, 2x10 thick plywood. Gives you the structural integrity, is not great when it comes to talking about thermal resistance and also mold and termite scenarios, right? Option two is taking a window buck that's made out of the same material as the ICF block, which is a nice thermal insulator, but the downside is it's too soft. You can't set that buck up and pour concrete on it, it's going to collapse the buck. And later on, you're also, if it's just the simple EPS buck, you can't really fasten windows to it. So with the MultiPro product, we have the option of taking that same thing, taking a much more dense EPS, which is now structural. This one has a bit of a groove in, cut into it, just kind of routed on a CNC just to make a nice fit in there. And we can see the window buck scenario right away eliminates all those problems. It's now dense enough that we can mount the window to it, whether it's a face mount or further in. It's structurally strong enough, it can take the weight of the concrete. It still needs to be braced, but not as much. And at the same time, you get rid of all the thermal components that you would have with timber otherwise. You now have an EPS layer right through front to back. So this is just cut out of the sheet material. There's nothing really unique about it in terms of modifying it for an ICF buck. We sell it in sheet goods. The contractor can really buy the sheet goods and modify it as he needs. We've had scenarios where we've done wall furrings. We've had scenarios where contractors do flat roof skylight build-ups to get the skylight to sit on top of a thermal break. Several other scenarios. No, I'm losing track of it. I had a whole list of different projects that we've done already. Once I see the pictures, then it comes back to me. But really, I think we get it, right? It's a unique product that's universal. It can be applied wherever there's structural and thermal resistive requirements. We can take the sheet material, we can cut it to size, it can be cut on site just with a table saw, and you can screw into it with a regular screw gun and really create unique solutions that are quite effective. So on the EPS side, so EPS, we refer to it as GPS because it's graphite infused in North America. But these three components, so we have the triotherm for window box scenarios, we have the plinth for undersill scenarios, and we have the MultiPro sheet, which is kind of a universal product, which can be applied in multiple directions. That's kind of what I wanted to do the intro today. And as questions come in, we can talk about various things. The Blaugelb portfolio itself is significantly bigger. We have stuff like exterior, interior tapes. There's stuff like expanding foam tapes. These are alternatives to spray foam, which are really nice. Maybe just a few comments on this. It comes on a roll compressed. Comes on a roll of tape, and this is meant to go around the window rough opening before the window gets inserted. And later on throughout the day, as it comes off the roll, it slowly expands and fills that void. The benefit of this is it's an alternative to spray foam. With spray foam, we have the issue if it's, especially when we're working with moist lumber, we have the rough opening, we set the window in, we spray foam it, and over time that lumber dries up, or the building settles and shifts, and now we have cracking, because that spray foam is cured, it's not moving anymore, but now the building's moving, and now we have cracks all around, which is not great. Whereas an expanding foam tape will not have that, because it's constantly playing, and it constantly has that play to take on those movements, so that those cracks should not occur. So in a nutshell, I didn't set myself a timer. I just wanted to do a brief intro on the EPS products. That's kind of what I wanted to touch base on. If we want to dive further into Blaugelb, I think we should take a separate session to kind of dive into tapes, expanding foams. There's potentially even some membranes coming on in the near future. I am in a test project right now where the membranes are actually being tried out, some of them. We can definitely dive into that, but I think what makes Blaugelb unique, giving us something into the industry, right? We always want to add value to the industry. What makes it unique and where it adds value to our industry is giving us a thermal insulator that is dense enough to be used as a structural material. We can screw into it, We can use it as a load-bearing material. We can cut it like with regular tools, a table saw, a cup saw. So it's really a product that can be brought onto site quickly, efficiently, and without really adapting the tool setup much. We can use it quite well in the industry. So that's kind of as much as I wanted to share from my end now. I think it kind of starts probably some questions here and there, and I think that's probably the best way to take it, really, to take questions from you as the listeners and try to address it that way.
Yeah, great, Alex. Great presentation. Love the product line. Love all the flexibility within it. I know when teaching as a fellow passive house tradesperson, that class from PHI and FIAS, we go over heavily about how you can take a high performance window, put it in the wrong location, calculate the psi value of the window install, and then how easily you can take an R7 window and make it into an R3 window just by installing it not in the right plane. Yesterday we were talking about on the Passive House Accelerator, we were talking about windows. So this is a way to get your high performance windows the best bang for your buck. And the construction typologies that I'm seeing you present are masonry construction, block and plank, kind of like buildings, where now you want to put the window out in the insulation layer and have it, they call it cantilevered, but it's really not cantilevered. It's anchored and mounted in a structural layer. And then we also have the same challenge in stick frame of, studded walls and sheathed exteriors. We want that window outbound. So I think it's a great product. And then in my just construction nerd driving around, I see a lot of windows get pre-flashed and thrown in before they're able to do the finish. So I think this product is perfectly suited for get your structure up and then throw your windows in, and now you're kind of like dry sooner than you would be normally. And you don't have flashing and floppy bits and Tyvek and other products that are just hanging out there that are just like, you're never going to get that sealed 100%. But I think this product is great. I love the expanding foam tapes. Hopefully we'll put up a video in the chat that shows the pre-install where you install the expanding foam tapes around the three sides and slowly that expands. Make sure your tolerances are right, using the right foam, and it's I think it's a great system, and I'm very proud to represent the product on Source 2050 and help anyone get the right install. So keep up the good work, my friend.
Yeah, Kevin, you took the words right out of my mouth. And Alex, you brought up a point that I didn't think of that's really obvious and awesome for people to understand. When we're cantilevering that window out into the insulation plane and creating it with this thermal buck, we have an opportunity to level out rough openings that aren't true, that aren't 90 degrees. What a great opportunity. Why didn't I think of that? I've loved this product for a long time. So thanks for that. Great hack. We do have some questions in the chat, but we're going to have to ask them for folks because I don't think they can come on and ask them themselves. But we appreciate everyone who asked a question, and we will get our tech fixed so that in the future you can ask Alex your questions directly. But Kevin, I threw some names up there when you guys are ready to go. But John, did you want to add anything before we kick off the questions? And Alex, I did, while you were going, throw links to everything into the chat that you were presenting. So if you're looking to look at a product that Alex mentioned, take a look in the chat and grab the link there.
I would just say it was a great presentation, Alex. And just from our perspective, Source 2050, we have so the Blaugelb line is so vast, and there's so many variations of each product, which is fantastic. All dimensions, sizes, particularly for the tapes. That you'll see on our site. Anything that is extended lead time, you'll see each product, and occasionally you'll see some dimensions or variations that'll be extended lead time. Those are the ones that are still available. They're just available from Germany. Anything that doesn't say extended lead time, though, is available for a short turnaround. It's available right here in North America. So we'll be updating the website with other products. We're talking with Alex about what we see demand for. So all that will update as this product line grows in popularity. But if you have any questions as you're on the site, is this available? What's happening with this? Can I get these two together? All those sorts of questions. Feel free to email us at info@source2050. But that was great, Alex. It's a really exciting product line.
Yeah, well said, John. All right, let's kick it over to questions. I think I saw a friend, Julie, asked the question about is the product fire tested? I guess it depends on where it's being questioned, right? Canada, US.
Yeah, and she was asking for the multi-pro panel when you were showing the multi-pro panel, Alex, that's when the question came up. But I imagine it applies to a lot of the products.
Correct, yeah. So the three geometries that we showed are all carry the same characteristics. It is a standard EPS product, so it is definitely not something that would be considered a flame-resistive material. That being said, it does get used in commercial construction as well. It just comes down to the building detailing at that point. But it's like standard EPS. You put a flame to it, it will melt.
She had a second question too, wondering what the connection detail might look like for installing I believe this was for the window buck material, for installing that into an existing masonry wall. Do you have any experience with that, Alex?
I specifically don't. I can get the resources to the people that are asking because this gets done in Europe frequently. If I'm not mistaken, this is, I think, even the reason why Blaugelb looked into inventing something like this, because it was masonry renovation projects that were causing headaches. And it is definitely a great solution for it. I haven't dealt with it in Canada. I can get the resources to whoever's asking. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Next question up is from Mark Willie. He was curious to know if you could show how this might be waterproofed and capped. I think he might be talking about the sill product there.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Thank you. And while you're doing that, Hastings Reed, who is a window manufacturer, a great window manufacturer that we have on the site, he was curious about having a recessed window, which gives more of a historic appeal to a facade rather than that modern flat appeal, right? And I know I can answer this one and you can back me up, Alex, or feel free to contradict me if you have another opinion. But yeah, you can achieve that look, Hastings, by simply pushing that buck into the insulation plane and making sure it touches, but still allowing a recess, because that will allow the isotherms, the way the heat moves through the materials, if they're touching and overlapping just a little bit, even if they're offset to give you that reveal, the heat transfer will still happen the way you want it to happen. What do you think of that explanation, Alex? Does that make sense?
I'll just quickly add to your comment and we'll jump back to Mark's question. So I think where that question originates from is the display that I was showing with the triotherm has the window mounted flush with the outside of the triotherm. That's simply for the sake of me being able to transport that corner sample around easier. I could have installed a much, much deeper buck. The triotherm buck does not designate where the front of the window needs to be. That window can be installed wherever the building consultant decides is best to put it. Absolutely, yeah. So to Mark's question, I'm hoping I understood it correctly, but the material itself is not water permeable, so it does not need to be flashed over as per se in a water shedding scenario. In a standing water scenario, you do want to cover it up, absolutely. So I didn't touch on that, but it's another one of Blaugelb's product here, is a paint-on membrane. It's called an FLK liquid, and essentially it's a paint-on flashing membrane that's meant for standing water as well. So what happens there is the triotherm gets installed. I gotta lift my detail up a bit here. The plinth gets installed on the concrete base layer. The door gets set on top of it, and then the joints, or the seams in between, get taped over with the exterior tape, and then that liquid flashing gets applied over. And once this cures out, it creates that rubber layer, which is designed to withstand even standing water. So it's a product that goes over top of it, but in a water shedding scenario, the product itself is water impermeable. As long as the joints are taped over, the actual material does not need to be. I hope that answers the question, Mark.
Great question, Mark. And it looks like Julie Torres Moskowitz is here. Hi, Julie. Great to see you too. We got two Julies, different Julie. She wants to know, does Source 2050 have the pH window product too? So does Blaugelb have windows or just the thermal break products? and asking because a client asked her to join to find out about Windows. But that was the program yesterday, Julie, and I'd be happy to jump on a call with you and we can talk about your project specifically. But yes, Alex is here showing these window cutaways in the mock-ups, but no, Blaugelb does not sell windows. So
Right. It's just the
you're just a Windows best friend, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's creating that passive house window joint to the passive house window wall joint. Absolutely, yeah. But there's definitely several solutions out there, and I think Source has definitely some in their portfolio as well.
I can say from personal experience in helping to install passive house windows, that sill extension jam detail is phenomenal, especially with UPVC windows, because that's the hardest spot to get foam and sealant and everything done right and have it level. So you're doing two birds at one stone. It's a sill extender and a thermal break material, and you can seal it with the polymer adhesive and polymer, and it gets fastened in pretty well. So I think it's a great product for the UPVC type windows, and I think it could work as well with the aluminum. The aluminum product, I think it has good. It can fit into as well, and even our wood products. I think it would be great to sit them on insulation on the bottom, and I think it's some really great resources out there. So.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to level out those floors and get those zero thresholds and mitigate that thermal bridge right there at a slab edge. I really like the way you paired this with the Nudura. That was super cool, very thoughtful. And looks like we got a new question in from Patrick.
I know one thing I'm just remembering is the pains that I saw the on-site teams lift with those lift and slide doors, trying to get that level, plumb, and level and square. This product would be great in that area because it can handle the structural load. You're not building up a bunch of, 2x or LVLs and trying to get it perfect. You can fix things with it. So I think this would be a great product underneath those heavy lift and slide doors. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No doubt. Patrick would love for you to talk about sizing the triotherm profiles in terms of thickness and in terms of length. So we have these sizes listed on the Source 2050 webpage, but he's wondering what packages they come in and how they get cut and joined to minimize waste. And I love that one. The scale of that one is awesome. Is that
Yeah,
the 6-inch?
This is the 6 inches. This is the biggest one that I have here. Obviously, they go deeper. The triotherm will always be the same length. It's 1175 millimeters, so it's right around 4 feet. Yeah, we're dealing with European components, so we're dealing in millimeters, and the numbers don't always make sense. Like, why is it not 4 feet? It's just under 4 feet, but for rough sakes, they're always going to be 85 millimeters wide, so that's right around 3 inches. The triotherm depths start at 70 millimeters, which is a 2 3/4 inch, and go all the way up to a 230 millimeter, which is right around 10 inches. Packaging units, I don't know off the top of my head. That we can probably find on the website. The nice thing about reducing waste is we got a dovetail joint front and back. Sorry, this is a cutoff. I'm showing you a bad piece. Here we go. This was the other piece for it. I cut it down for transport so it wasn't so long. But essentially this is the back end of it. We've got the dovetail joint on the back end. And this allows the triotherm to be extended, so we basically have no waste. You cut the piece that gets cut off, gets used on the next segment. You can extend it.
When you can route this stuff out and you can mill it almost like you're working with wood, right? You can
Yeah,
nail
very
it,
similar.
you can screw it, you can mill it, and I imagine it cuts kind of like butter compared to wood. So
yeah,
it's nice to be able to hear you handling the product too, because you can hear how dense it is. It's incredible.
Yeah, correct. And you mentioned cutting. Maybe I'll just throw in that comment too. When working with it, you can work with it with regular tools. The only thing you're trying to do is put the least amount of friction to it possible. Meaning, if you run it with a saw blade, the least amount of teeth possible is best. It gets loud because you're cutting EPS. It's going to squeal, but you can run it through the table saw. No problem.
Excellent. Thank you. That's good. Good tip. I think we're out of questions. I'll make a last call for questions, but Kevin, did you have some of your own?
I saw one question asking for a detail, and I don't think right now Alex has the ability to present a detail, but at some point in time, we'll post a picture of a detail that we come across that shows one of these detail. I'm sure Alex has some of these with his colleagues, and we can share a detail of what this looks like. I know from being a Passive House nerd that IFT Rosenham has a great technical book that is about window installs. It's an amazing book about all fenestration installs, and there's tons of technical details in there. When I was preparing myself to teach the tradesperson course, reaching out looking for resources, that's one of the books I bought, and there's tons of details in there. So we're happy to share those when we have them, but we don't have them readily available right now. Sorry.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm going to throw a link in the chat to the triotherm profile, because it's not a detailed drawing, but it is some really nice close-ups of how the two come together. So I'm going to send you a link in the chat. You can see them. And thanks for that question, Hastings. These are all cradle to cradle products too. Am I right about
correct.
that, Alex? Yeah.
Yeah, they are cradle to cradle certified, correct.
That's a great certification to be able to get. So for people that are looking to count carbon and minimize waste, that's another way to do it, right? Is to really look at how the products are manufactured and what happens at the end of life.
Yeah, correct.
Great. Well, last call for questions, everybody. Please put them in the chat if you've got them. Other than that, Alex, you were spectacular. Thank you for coming straight from the workshop. That's the point of these Zooms. We're really looking forward to having you back as you learn more about your sheet goods and are ready to showcase those as well. And I know you have samples you can send out to folks if they're interested, and that you're available to answer questions after this. We can always connect you.
Yeah, for sure. This was fun. Thanks for having me on. Absolutely.
And I would just add, I made the point earlier. There's the Blaugelb line is massive, and these products are available in all sorts of sizes and shapes in the European market. And so we are very much in the process of kind of sorting out what dimensions are specifically in demand, what products, what accessory products, are needed to make those available closer to home. So right now, when you go on the Source 2050, you've got kind of the whole product line. We try to flag where it's going to be a longer lead time if it's coming over from Europe versus if we have it right here in North America. But if you have any questions about that, or you're just not certain, feel free to email us anytime, info@source2050. What product are you looking at? What are you trying to do? What are your dimensions? And we can get back to you right away and clarify that, because I know that could be a little confusing, like what's available immediately, what do I have to wait for? It's just such a vast product line. We want to make sure that everyone's aware of what's possible. So we've kind of been maximalist about what we offer or what's listed on the site. But if you've got questions about that kind of stuff, lead time, total cost, shipping cost, all of that, you can always email us. It's info@source2050, and we'd be happy to help you out.
Yeah, and just to second that, I think you're absolutely right, John. It really helps to, even if it's just a 2-3 sentence dialogue that goes and that explains the application that we're trying to use this for, we can probably really recommend, hey, go with the Triotherm, go with the Multi-Pro, cut it down, whatever. Just a quick 2-3 sentence blur will really help you guys with the projects a long way, because we can make those recommendations.
Yeah, and one other question on that, Alex, is you mentioned you've got the membrane behind you, you've got all these other products, which is great to have a full system, right, where you know that everything's going to work together well. What have you seen as far as integrations with people who are just using the sill profiles, for example, with kind of your standard tapes, adhesives, liquid applied membranes, these sorts of things? How does adhesion usually work out? I know it's hard to answer in the abstract. You got to look at the specific product, but kind of what's been your experience with integrating with systems that people might already be using?
I haven't come across negative surprises, I should say. The tapes are very similar to what we have in the industry already. So what we have in the industry in terms of the performance tapes we have in the industry, these are very similar. So adhesion hasn't been an issue looking at it from that standpoint. What has been a little bit of a challenge, which I think we've overcome, is the geometry sizing. Because for example, the Triotherm, a 70 millimeter Triotherm, doesn't really fall in directly with our typical way of building, right? We're building in the 2x, 3x, 4x dimensions, right? We're using the inch system. So there we've overcome it by, for example, we needed a 2-inch Triotherm, and there is no such thing as a 2-inch Triotherm, so we just went to a 2-inch plinth. and use the plinth in a triatherm application. So overcoming those geometry scenarios, maybe we're small challenges, but it's a matter of, again, seeing what's the application, how can we make it work.
Right.
Great answer, Alex. Thank you. Kevin, any final words or any shopkeeping, John, for our next workshop?
Yeah, I would say stay tuned. We're going to be announcing, we're doing these the second and fourth Thursday of each month going forward. We'll be announcing our next one will be in 2 weeks. I think it's pretty exciting. It's going to be a new product to Source 2050 that you don't know about yet. So that's pretty exciting. And then we're going to continue these on through to cover. We realize we have so many amazing products from so many amazing brands. It's really great to have these small sessions where we can answer specific questions, learn directly from the brand, understand how they work with the rest of the products that we offer, the products that you might be using. So we're going to continue these. We will be creating an archive of all the videos that we've done. We're going to make that available shortly on the website. So if you've missed this or you want to forward this on to someone that missed it, you can always find the videos there. And we'll try to make them kind of interactive so you can click through the videos to links that we mention. You can reach out to us about specific things that are mentioned in the video. If you've got follow-up questions, we'll make it a nice piece of not just a video, but a real kind of archive of all the knowledge that these brands are sharing with us on these sessions. So thank you all for joining. Watch your email for the next announcement. It'll be coming out soon.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Alex. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks all. Okay, we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.